400-point Star Wars Armada battle report. Luminara Unduli will lead a Republic task force trying to break through a separatist blockade and bring relief to the beleaguered inhabitants, while Tuuk and his separatist defense forces will try and repel the Republic invasion and maintain this outpost for the Confederacy. Now, let's take a look at the fleets.
The Republic fleet, led by Luminara Unduli, consists of a Venator 1 class Star Destroyer with the Tranquility title, local fire control, DBY-827 heavy turbo lasers, flak guns, external racks, and a mercy mission. There's also a Pelta class transport frigate with projection experts, parts resupply, and the TB-73 title. Another Pelta class transport frigate with projection experts and parts resupply. Then a Consular class Charger C-70 with clone Captain Zack, engine techs, and linked turbolaser towers. The squadrons for this fleet consist of Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, Kickback, and Axe. This fleet comes in at 385 points, and its objectives are Most Wanted, Volatile Deposits, and Abandoned Mining Facility. The CIS fleet, led by Tuuk, has a Munificent class comms frigate with the Tide of Progress 12 title, Flight Commander, Fighter Coordination Team, Expanded Hangar Bay, and linked turbolaser towers. There's another Munificent class comms frigate with the Flight Commander, Fighter Coordination Team, Expanded Hangar Bay, and linked turbolaser towers. Then a Hard Cell class transport with the Foreman's Labor title and a Bomber Command Center. Then for squadrons, there's the Flak Arfok prototypes and DIS TB-1 tri-fighters, along with 3 other droid tri-fighter squadrons, DBS 404 and Bactoid prototype bombers, along with 2 other Hyena-class bombers and 1 Vulture-class droid, for a total of 398 points. Their objectives are Precision Strike, Contested Outpost, and Superior Positions. Having the lower point total, Luminara has chosen to go first and has selected the Contested Outpost objective. Tuuk, having fewer ships, receives 1 pass token. Obstacles were placed in the corners of the map, forcing the Contested Outpost towards the center. For deployment, the Mercy mission is assigned to the C-70 Charger. Starting off deployment, Pelta number 2 is deployed along the table edge. A Hard Cell is deployed in the center, facing the contested outpost. Pelta number 1 is also deployed along the table edge. 2 Hyena-class bombers are deployed next to the Hard Cell. Axe and Kickback are deployed near Pelta number 2. The 2 named droid Hyena bomber squadrons are deployed next to the Hard Cell. Anakin and Ahsoka are deployed near Pelta number 2. A Tri-Fighter and Vulture droid are deployed next to the Hard Cell. The Venator 1 is deployed at speed 2 in the center, ready to assault the station, and its contain is replaced with a salvo token. 2 more droid Tri-Fighters are added to the droid swarm. The Charger C-70 deploys at speed 2 on the flank. With no further Republic deployments, the 2 Munificents are deployed with Tuuk on the starboard flank, and the remaining droid squadrons are added to the swarm. Starting off round 1, Pelta number 2 takes a Navigate command and chooses to take it as a token. Then moves with a Speed 2 turn to port. The Hard Cell activates, revealing a Navigate command. Chooses to take it as a token, and moves forward at speed 1. Pelta number 1 activates, revealing a Navigate command. Chooses to take it as a token. Then performs a speed 2 turn to starboard. Tide of Progress activates, revealing a Navigate command, and chooses to keep it as a token. Then moves forward at speed 1. The Tranquility reveals an Engineering command, and chooses to take it as a token. It then moves ahead at speed 2. The other munificent activates and reveals a Navigate command. It's going to take it as a token. It then moves ahead at speed 1. The Charger C-70 activates, it reveals a Navigate command, and it's going to keep it as a command. It speeds up to speed 3. Then exhausts engine techs for a speed 1 maneuver. The start of the squadron phase, axe and kickback are activated and move forward in support of the Venator. The two droid tri-fighter aces move forward, screening the rest of the droid squadron formation. Anakin and Ahsoka move into formation in support of the Venator. The remaining droid squadrons swarm forward, creating a screen in front of the ships. Tuuk controls the station with 1 command value and scores 20 points. At the start of round 2, the Venator will activate, revealing a Navigate command that it will take as a token. Then it will make a speed 2 turn to starboard. Tide of Progress activates, revealing a squadron command that is going to keep as a command. It activates a Vulture droid, which moves into bombing range of the Venator. The droid fires on the Venator with a single red die, scoring 1 hit. Tranquility exhausts a salvo token to fire back at the droid. Venator also uses the Tranquility title to move a shield from the starboard side to the front to absorb the hit. It fires back with its flak attack, doing 2 damage to the Vulture droid. DIS-T-81 is activated and moves into bombing range of the Venator. Fires with a single black die, but doesn't do any damage. The Venator salvos back. Luminara refreshes the other salvo token since only one defense token was spent. And the salvo back deals 1 damage. And DB-wise, change it to 2 damage. But the droid Tri-Fighter will scatter to avoid the damage. Next, the Bactoid prototypes are activated, and they move in to bomb the Venator on the front. They roll a red for their armament, and then another red for AI. And then they get a Bomber Command Center reroll for 2 crits. The Tranquility will spend 1 salvo token to salvo back, and then Luminara will refresh the other salvo token, and the Tranquility title will move 2 shields from the starboard side up to the front to absorb the 2 crits. Salvo back inflicts 2 damage. The droid will spend its scatter to avoid the damage. Finally, a Hyena Bomber is activated. It also moves into range to bomb the Tranquility on its front. It rolls a red die for its anti-ship armament and another red die for AI, scoring 2 hits and a crit. Tranquility chooses to exhaust its salvo token, and because it only spent 1 defense token, Luminara unexhausts the other salvo token, and the Tranquility title moves 2 shields from the rear to the front, so only 1 shield is taken off of the front. Salvo back does 2 damage to the Hyena Bomber. After activating squadrons, the Tide of Progress lines up its own shots in the front of the Tranquility. First it fires from its front arc to the front of the Tranquility with 2 red dice, and Tuuk adds a 3rd die because there are shields in the front of the Tranquility. It then rerolls the blank red die with linked turbolaser towers, scoring 2 crits and a hit. The Tranquility exhausts a salvo token, and since it only spent 1 defense token, Luminara unexhausts the other salvo token, and Tranquility moves shields from the port side to the front to absorb the hits. So the front is only reduced by 1. The salvo shot back is a red and a blue because of flak guns. It scores a hit and a crit. Tide of Progress chooses to take both hits on the front hull zone. It then fires from its side to the front of the Tranquility with 3 red dice. One of the accuracies is rerolled with linked turbolaser towers. It scores an accuracy, a hit, and a crit. It chooses to accuracy the green salvo, and so the Tranquility uses a brace to reduce the damage to 1, and then refreshes the other salvo token because only 1 defense token was spent. Tide of Progress then moves forward at speed 1. After moving, the Tide of Progress moves the activated squadrons back distance 1 using the fighter coordination team in order to keep them out of flak range of the Tranquility. Pelta number 2 activates and reveals an engineering command. It chooses to keep it as a command and exhaust parts resupply to put an engineering token on itself and on Pelta number 1. The engineering command chooses to spend 2 engineering points through projection experts to add 2 shields back onto the Tranquility. We'll use the other 4 engineering points to regenerate the 2 shields it sent over on itself. 1 shield is added to the front of the Tranquility and 1 shield is added to the port side. Pelta then moves forward at speed 2, displacing Anakin Skywalker, who is placed off the back corner. The hard cell then activates with a concentrate fire command that it chooses to keep as a command. It has a long-range shot from the front of the hard cell to the front of the Tranquility. At long range, it fires 2 red dice, and then Tuuk adds a 3rd red dice because there is shields on the front of the Tranquility, and then the concentrate fire is used to add a 4th red die, scoring 3 hits, a crit, and an accuracy. Tranquility uses a salvo token in order to fire back on the hard cell, and then the Tranquility title transfers shields to the front, absorbing the 4 hits. Salvo back onto the hard cell is a red and a blue, and it scores 2 hits. Hard cell uses its evade to cancel the red die, and then its title, Foreman's Labor, gets rid of the other damage. It then moves forward at speed 1. Pelta number 1 activates, revealing an engineering command that it keeps as a command. It spends both the command dial and its token to generate engineering points. It gets 6 of them. 2 of them are going to be used through projection experts to put shields back on the Tranquility that are placed on the rear hull zone, and the other 4 engineering points regenerate the 2 shields that the Pelta lost by sending them to the Tranquility. Pelta then moves forward, making a turn to starboard to keep up with the Tranquility. The Munificent activates, revealing a squadron command that it keeps as a command. First to be activated are the Flak Arfok prototypes. They move into bombing range of the Tranquility and launch an attack on its front arc. They fire 1 black die, getting a single hit. The Tranquility exhausts a salvo token, and since it only exhausted 1 token, it refreshes the other salvo token, and the Tranquility Title moves a shield to the front to deal with the damage. Salvo back is converted to 2 damage with DBYs, and Black Arvok scatters to avoid the damage. The next squadron activated is DBS 404. It moves forward into bombing range of the Tranquility's front. Fires a red die for its anti-ship armament, and then another red die for AI, and then gets a reroll from Bomber Command Center for a double and a blank. Tranquility chooses to salvo back at the bomber. And the Tranquility Title moves a shield from the rear to absorb 1 of the 2 damage. The other is taken as a card. Salvo attack back is for 2 damage, which the bomber will scatter to evade. Next up is a Hyena Bomber Squadron. It moves forward into range of the Tranquility's front. It then fires 2 red dice, 1 from its armament and 1 from AI. It gets a reroll from Bomber Command Center and scores a hit and a crit. Tranquility chooses to use a salvo token to fire back on the bomber. Luminara unexhausts the other salvo token. Salvo attack does 2 damage back on the bomber, which it takes, leaving it at 2 health. And then the Tranquility receives a face-up card and a face-down card. The critical effect is Injured Crew, which the Tranquility chooses to lose a redirect defense token, and then the crit is flipped face-down. Finally, a basic droid Tri-Fighter is activated and moved into bombing range of the Tranquility. It fires with a single black die, scoring a hit. Tranquility chooses to salvo back at the squadron. Tranquility takes 1 damage card from the attack and fires back with 2 black dice, DBYs changing 1 to a hit, so 2 hits are scored on the Tri-Fighter. Munificent is out of range to do any shooting itself. Navigate token to speed up to speed 2 and makes a turn to starboard coming in towards the Tranquility at speed 2. After moving, the Munificent uses its fighter coordination team to pull as many of its activated squadrons back out of flak range of the Tranquility as possible. C-70 Charger is activated with a navigate command. It's going to keep it as a command. to move speed 3, and then using the command to activate and exhaust engine techs, it will then move speed 1 maneuver. At the start of the squadron phase, the Republic will activate Axe and Kickback. Axe moves forward to protect the port side of the Tranquility, and Kickback will move up to defend the starboard side. Droid Tri-Fighter squadrons are activated, moving forward to engage both Axe and Kickback. Ahsoka Tano activates and moves forward in support of Kickback. She allows him to fire on the Tri-Fighter with 2 blue dice. Red die was accidentally added in, scoring a hit on the Tri-Fighter. Tri-Fighter counters back and scores a hit on Kickback, because Kickback, after his attack when he moves, chooses not to move outside of engagement range of the Tri-Fighter. Then Anakin Skywalker follows Ahsoka to the starboard side of the Tranquility. Luminara now has 3 command points on the station in Tuuk's 1, thus taking control of the station and scoring 20 points. Starting off round 3, the Tranquility is activated with a squadron command. It chooses to keep the command. It then spends its engineering token to gain 2 engineering points, regenerating a shield on the starboard side. Using the squadron command, Tranquility can activate 3 squadrons. It starts off activating Anakin Skywalker, who moves up, engaging DBS 404, a generic Hyena Bomber, and a Tri-Fighter. Anakin Skywalker chooses to fire at the generic Hyena Bomber. He scores 3 hits with his 3 blue dice, destroying the Hyena Bomber. Then Ahsoka Tano is activated, who moves forward to engage DBS 404 and the generic Tri-Fighter. After moving, her ability triggers Anakin Skywalker to fire 2 blue dice at DBS 404. He uses Adept 2 to reroll one of the dice, gets an accuracy and a hit. He accuracies DBS 404's Scatter and does 1 damage. Then Ahsoka Tano will attack the same target. Her attack is 3 blue dice and a black die. She uses Adept 1 to reroll one of the dice, getting 2 accuracies and a hit. She accuracies both of the droid's defense tokens and does 1 damage to it. The last squadron activated is Kickback. Kickback attacks the Tri-Fighter that he is currently engaged with. With 2 blue dice and a red, gets 2 hits and an accuracy, which is enough damage to destroy the Tri-Fighter. He then uses his special ability to move after attacking to get out of range of the Tri-Fighter's counterattack. Tranquility then begins shooting from its front arc to the front arc of the Munificent. It has 3 red dice and a medium range shot. It gets 1 crit. The Munificent will exhaust its salvo and redirect defense tokens, moving the damage over to the port side. Munificent's shot back with salvo, gets rerolled with a linked turbo laser towers and scores a hit and a crit. The Tranquility will spend its brace defense token to reduce the damage to 1, and then the Tranquility title moves shield from the starboard side to the front. The Tranquility then flaks out its port side at the droid Tri-Fighter. 2 black, it gets 2 hits, doing 2 damage to the droid Tri-Fighter. Tranquility then uses its Navigate token to reduce its speed to 1, moving straight ahead, overlapping Anakin Skywalker and Kickback. Both of those squadrons are then displaced to the starboard rear corner. Tide of Progress activates, revealing a squadron command that chooses to keep as a command. It uses its Flight Commander to delay activating squadrons until after it is moved. Tide of Progress has a double arc on the front of the Tranquility, and that is at medium range. Chooses to start shooting using its front arc at the front arc of the Tranquility. The shot has 2 blue dice and 2 red dice. The Tranquility no longer has any shields, so according to Tuuk's ability, one of the dice must be removed from the attack pool. The result is 2 hits and 2 crits. Tranquility discards its Brace defense token to reduce the damage by 2, and then chooses to salvo back at the Tide of Progress. Its salvo shot is red, blue, black due to flak guns, and DB-wise changes the black die to a hit and a crit for 2 crits and 1 hit back at the Tide of Progress. Tide of Progress will brace the damage down to 2 and redirect those 2 to the starboard side shields. The Tranquility then receives damage, a crit and a hit, the crit effect being compartment fire. The Tranquility can no longer ready defense tokens. Tide of Progress chooses to stop firing its guns and move. It moves ahead at speed 1, overlapping a Hyena bomber and displacing it to the rear. After moving, its fighter coordination team upgrade allows it to move up to 4 squadrons, distance 1 from their current position. Tide of Progress then begins its delayed squadron activation, starting with the Bactoid Prototype's bombers. They fire into the front of the Tranquility, scoring a crit and a hit. Tranquility chooses to salvo back. Salvo is 2 hits, which the Bactoid prototypes will scatter to avoid the damage. Tranquility is then dealt 2 damage. The critical hit is Calm Noise, allowing Tuuk to either change the top command dial of the Tranquility or reduce its speed by 1. Its command dial is changed to Navigate. Then the Bactoid prototypes moves out of range of flak. Next to activate is a Hyena Bomber. It moves into bombing range and commences an attack on the front of the Tranquility. It scores 2 hits, enough damage to destroy the Tranquility. Tranquility will discard a salvo token to fire back on the bomber, scoring 2 hits. Both the bomber and the Tranquility are destroyed. The last squadron activated is DIS-T-81. It moves into range of Axe and attacks with 2 blue and a red, and then gets to add an additional die from AI. Axe uses a brace to reduce the damage to 1 and takes 1 damage. Pelta number 1 activates, revealing an engineering command which it chooses to take as a token. It then has a long-range shot from its front to the side of the Munificent. Fires 2 red dice, getting only an accuracy, and accuracies the Munificent's salvo. The Pelta then makes a speed 2 turn to starboard that has it landing on an asteroid, dealing a critical hit to the Pelta. The crit is Injured Crew, which discards one of the Pelta's defense tokens. It loses an evade. The Hard Cell activates with a Concentrate Fire command that it chooses to keep as a command. It has a long-range shot from its front to the port side of Pelta number 1. It begins the attack with 2 red dice. Then Tuuk adds an extra red dice because there's shields on the Pelta, and then the Concentrate Fire command is spent to add a 4th red die. The Hard Cell gets 3 hits and an accuracy. Chooses to accuracy the Pelta's evade. The Pelta then redirects the damage, taking 2 damage on the port shields and 1 damage on the rear shields. The Hard Cell then continues to move forward at speed 1. Pelton number 2 activates, revealing an engineering command, which it keeps as a command. It uses 2 of its 4 engineering points to move shields from its starboard side to the port side of Pelton number 1, and then it uses its last 2 engineering points to regenerate one of the shields on its starboard side. Then moves ahead at speed 2, running into the asteroid field. Its crit is shield failure, and it loses 1 shield on its front and 1 on its port side. Tuuk spends his pass token to make it the Republic's turn again. Charger C-70 activates with a Concentrate Fire command, chooses to keep it as a command, and has a double arc on the port side of the Munificent. It starts with its front arc to the side of the Munificent, rolling 2 red dice and a blue die. It then spends the Concentrate Fire command to add a blue die. Gets a total of 4 hits. The Munificent chooses to spend its Brace token to reduce the damage to 2 and loses 2 port shields. The C-70 then performs an attack from its port side to the port side of the Munificent. Rolls 2 red dice. Then it exhausts Clone Captain Zack to add an additional red die to the attack pool. And that die is re-rolled with linked turbo laser towers. For a result of 2 accuracies and a crit, the Munificent's salvo and redirect tokens are accuracied and is dealt 1 critical damage to the port side, which is Coolant Discharge. The Munificent can now only perform 1 attack against a ship each turn. The C-70 then moves ahead at speed 3. The Munificent is activated with a squadron command which it chooses to keep. Begins by activating the Flak Arfok prototypes that move into bombing range of the C-70 Charger. Fires a single black die at the port side of the C-70, doing 1 damage. C-70's port shields are reduced by 1. Bactoid prototypes are activated and move into bombing range of the C-70. Fires 2 red dice, getting a hit and a crit. C-70 uses its Evade token to reroll the crit. Stays a crit. Then uses its Redirect to move the 2 damage to the front shields. Next, DBS-404 is activated and moves into bombing range of the C-70. 2 red dice into the C-70's port side, getting double accuracy and re-rolling 1 with the Bomber Command Center for a double hit. The accuracy is used to lock down evade, and the C-70 discards its redirect token to take 1 damage on the port shields and 1 damage on its rear shields. The Munificent then begins firing with its own guns, firing from its starboard side into the port side of the C-70. Rolls 3 reds, and then re-rolls 1 of them with linked turbolaser towers, scoring 3 hits and an accuracy. The accuracy is used to stop evade, and the C-70 takes 3 damage. Munificent then flaks squadrons in its front arc. Against Ahsoka, it rolls a red die for a single hit that she scatters to avoid the damage. Against Anakin, a double hit. He spends a brace to reduce to 1 damage. Against Kickback, 1 damage. Also 1 damage to Axe, which he spends an evade to reroll the die into no damage. The Munificent then moves ahead at speed 2, overlapping Ahsoka Tano. She is displaced to the Munificent's starboard side. The squadron phase, Axe attacks a droid tri-fighter squadron. He does 3 damage, destroying the droids. The tri-fighters counter back, dealing 1 damage to Axe. Tri-fighters engaging Ahsoka choose to hold position and not risk being destroyed by counterfire. The Vulture droids move up and engage Axe. Tuuk has 5 command on the station, retaking control of it and scoring 20 points. The Concentrate Fire token on Clone Captain Zack is discarded to unexhaust him.
Enjoying this battle report? Make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons so that I know to keep making more Star Wars Armada content. Now, will the Republic forces be able to escape, or will the Separatists destroy them all? Or will Anakin and Ahsoka be able to destroy enough droids to turn this battle around? Keep watching to find out.
At the top of round 4, the C-70 Charger is activated with a Navigate command, which it keeps as a command. Uses the command to speed up to speed 4. And then uses engine text to make a speed 1 maneuver. The Munificent activates, revealing a squadron command that it keeps as a command. first activates the Bactoid prototypes that move into range to begin bombing the C-70 Charger. They get an accuracy and a damage. The accuracy is used to block the evade, and the 1 damage is enough to destroy the C-70. Next, DBS-404 is activated and moves into range to begin bombing Pelta number 1. The bombers attack the front of the ship with 2 red dice and use a Bomber Command Center reroll, but only get 2 accuracies, doing no damage. Then the Flak Arfok prototypes move into the front arc of Pelta number 1 and begin attacking. They do 1 damage to the front of the Pelta, which it takes on its front shields. The Munificent then fires its port guns into the front of the Pelta. Get 3 damage and 2 crits. The Pelta spends an evade to reroll the double, which gets rerolled into another double. And the Pelta spends a brace to reduce the damage from 5 to 3. And a redirect, taking 2 damage on the front shields and 1 damage on the port shields. The Munificent then flaks the squadrons in its front arc, but misses both shots. Then performs a Speed 2 starboard turn, displacing both Anakin and Kickback. The displaced squadrons are placed on the Munificent's starboard side. Pelta number 1 reveals an engineering command that it keeps as a command. Using both the dial and the token, it generates 6 engineering points and regenerates 3 shields, 2 on the front and 1 on the port side. Pelta then takes a medium-range shot on the hard cell with a red and a blue, uses the blue accuracy to stop the hard cell's evade, and does 1 damage, which the hard cell takes on its front shields. Pelta then flaks out its front, scoring 1 hit on DBS-404, which the bombers scatter to avoid the damage. It but then misses, hitting the flak Arfok prototypes. Pelta then moves ahead at speed 2, displacing the flak Arfok prototypes. The Tide of Progress activates with a squadron command that it keeps as a command. Its first activation is a squadron of Vulture droids, which attack Axe. Blue and a black for 2 hits, and then AI adds in an additional die, which they choose a blue for a 3rd hit. Then use a swarm reroll to reroll the blue die, getting an accuracy. They use to accuracy the brace. Axe spends his evade token to reroll the blue die. The result is 2 damage, which destroys Axe. DIS T-81 is activated and moves into snipe range of Ahsoka. Tri-Fighters make a 3 blue die snipe attack on Ahsoka, re-rolling one of the blue dice with Swarm. They accuracy her scatter and do 2 damage. Ahsoka spends a brace token to reduce the damage to 1. Tide of Progress then makes a Speed 2 turn to port, displacing the Tri-Fighter and Vulture Droid squadrons. They are displaced to the rear of the ship. Tide of Progress then uses its fighter coordination teams to move the 2 displaced squadrons up distance 1. Pelta number 2 activates with an engineering command that it keeps as a command. It generates 4 engineering points, 2 of which it sends through projection experts to Pelta number 1, and the last 2 it uses to regenerate one of the 2 shields that it sends. Pelta number 2 then fires its port guns into the starboard side of the Munificent. The shot is obstructed by asteroids, so the Pelta drops a blue die and rolls just a red for a hit. The Munificent uses its salvo defense token and redirect, sending the hit around onto the front shields. Salvo return fire is also obstructed and reduced to 1 red die, which is a hit. Pelta spends a redirect, moving the damage around to the front shields. Pelta number 2 then flaks the squadrons at its front arc, starting with DBS 404 for no damage, and then 1 damage to the flak Arfok prototypes, which scatter to evade the damage. It then performs a Speed 2 maneuver ahead. The hard cell activates with a concentrate fire command that it keeps as a command. It has a long-range shot from its front arc to the port arc of Pelta number 2. Fires 2 red dice from its front battery. Then Tuuk adds a 3rd red die because there's shields on the Pelta. And then Concentrate Fire is spent to add a 4th red die, getting 2 accuracies, a hit, and a crit. The accuracies are spent to stop both the evade and brace. Pelta discards its redirect to move 1 of the damage onto its rear shields and 1 on the port shields. The hard cell then fires on Pelta number 1 at medium range, but does no damage. The hard cell then spends its navigate token to increase its speed to 2. And then performs a speed 2 inside turn to port. Start of the squadron phase, Kickback performs a bombing attack on the starboard side of the Munificent, scoring 1 damage. Then Anakin Skywalker bombs the starboard side of the Munificent. Accuracying the redirect and doing a crit to the Munificent. The Munificent discards its salvo token to fire back on Anakin Skywalker. Die is rerolled with Link Turbolaser Towers, but still misses. Critical damage to the Munificent is Targeter Disruption. It can no longer perform critical effects. The remaining droid Tri-Fighter Squadron again holds station, engaging Ahsoka Tano. Ahsoka then fires on the droid Tri-Fighters. She gets 2 damage, which is enough to destroy the droids. The Tri-Fighters counter back, but do no damage. Tuuk has 3 command on the station, maintaining control and scoring 20 points. To start off round 5, Pelta number 2 activates with an engineering command. It keeps it as a command and uses the 4 engineering points to regenerate 2 shields, one on its rear and one on its port. It then fires its port guns into the rear of the Munificent. Rolling 2 accuracies, it does no damage. It then fires its rear guns into the rear of the Munificent, getting a hit and a crit. The Munificent spends its brace to reduce the damage to 1 and takes 1 damage on its rear shields. Pelta then performs a Speed 2 maneuver to starboard. The Munificent activates, revealing a squadron command. It chooses to keep it as a command. It activates a Vulture Squadron that moves to engage Kickback and Anakin Skywalker. The Vulture droids attack Kickback, rolling a blue and black die, and add a blue die with AI. The droids inflict 2 hits, but Kickback braces, reducing it to 1, and takes 1 damage. Next, DIS-T-81 is activated and moves to engage Anakin Skywalker and Kickback. The Tri-Fighters attack Kickback and reroll the red die using a swarm reroll. They inflict 2 hits, which Kickback braces to 1 and takes 1 damage. Next, the Munificent activates the DBS-404 Hyena bombers. They reposition to get a shot on the rear of Pelta number 1. The bombers roll 2 red dice, getting a double and a crit. The Pelta spends its evade to reroll the double hit into nothing. Pelta then takes the single remaining damage on its rear shields. The Munificent then fires its rear guns at a medium-range shot at the rear of Pelta number 1. Rolls 2 hits, which the Pelta braces to 1, and takes the 1 damage on a rear shield. The Munificent then flaks the squadrons in its port arc, starting with Anakin Skywalker, and with a Link Turbo Laser Towers reroll, gets A damage. It then fires on Kickback, doing 2 damage. Kickback braces to 1. It then performs a Speed 2 turn to starboard. Pelta number 1 activates with an engineering command. It then exhausts parts resupply to give itself and Pelta number 2 engineering command tokens. Pelta number 1 then uses its command and its token to generate 6 engineering points that it uses to regenerate 1 shield on its rear and 2 shields on its front. Pelta then flaks the squadrons in its port arc, doing 1 damage to the flak Arfok prototypes, which scatter to avoid the damage. It then flaks the squadrons in its rear arc, doing another damage to the flak Arfok prototypes, which the droid takes. It then flaks the DBS-404 bombers, which scatter to avoid the damage. Pelta then moves forward at speed 2. The hard cell activates with a navigate command, which it chooses to keep as a command. It then flaks the squadrons in its port arc. Fires 1 blue die at Ahsoka Tano, but misses. Its front arc anti-squadron guns fire at Anakin Skywalker, doing 1 damage. They also fire on kickback, but miss. The hard cell then performs a speed 2 hard turn to port. The Tide of Progress then activates with a squadron command that it chooses to keep as a command. It uses Flight Commander to delay activation of squadrons until after it moves. The Tide of Progress fires its starboard flak guns at kickback, dealing 2 damage and destroying him. Then fires its starboard flak at Anakin, re-rolling with linked turbo laser towers, but still missing. The Tide of Progress then fires its port batteries into the rear of Pelta number 1. Rolls a double hit, and Tuuk adds a die for there being shields on the Pelta, then linked turbo laser towers re-rolls a die. It still only ends up with 2 hits. Pelta spends its brace, moving the 2 hits to its starboard shields. Then performs a speed 2 turn to port, displacing DBS-404. Using its delayed squadron command, the Tide of Progress activates Flak Arfok prototypes, which move back to engage Anakin Skywalker. Adds in a blue die from AI and re-rolls the red die with Swarm. Gets 2 hits and an accuracy on Anakin Skywalker, who spends his other brace token to reduce the damage to 1. In the squadron phase, Anakin Skywalker spends his brace token to ignore engagement for the remainder of the turn, and moves out of the droid squadron ball. Ahsoka Tano then activates, and also moves away from the droid fleet. The Bactoid Prototypes bombers activate and fly back to their carrier group. Tuuk has 2 command on the station, maintaining control, and scores another 20 points. Starting round 6, Pelta number 2 activates with a squadron command that it will keep as a command, and it uses its engineering token to regenerate 1 starboard shield. The Pelta uses its squadron command to activate Anakin Skywalker. Anakin bombs the starboard side of the hard cell, inflicting 2 damage. The hard cell redirects the damage to the rear. Anakin then moves away from the droid fleet. Pelta number 2 then fires its starboard guns into the front of the hard cell. Only does 1 damage that the hard cell takes on its front shields. The Pelta then fires its rear guns at the front of the hard cell, doing 2 damage and a crit. The hard cell uses its evade to reroll the double, leaving a single damage that it takes on the front shields. The Pelta then moves ahead at speed 2. Tide of Progress activates, revealing a squadron command. It chooses to keep it as a command. Flight Commander is then used to delay the squadron activation until after the Tide of Progress moves. The Tide of Progress fires its forward guns at medium range into the rear of Pelta number 1. Tuuk adds an extra red die, and the Tide of Progress rolls 3 hits, 2 crits, and an accuracy. The accuracy is used to lock down the evade. Pelta number 1 spends its brace to reduce the damage to 3, and then spends its redirect to move 2 damage to its port shields. Tide of Progress performs a Speed 2 turn to port. After moving, Fighter Coordination Team moves DBS 404, Flak Arfok prototypes, and Bactoid prototypes distance 1 closer to Pelta number 1. The delayed squadron command is used to activate the Bactoid prototypes, which already is in range to bomb the back of Pelta number 1. It gets an accuracy and a hit. Bomber Command Center is used to reroll the accuracy into a crit. Pelta uses its evade to reroll the crit back into an accuracy that is now useless. 1 damage is dealt to the rear of the Pelta, which is taken as a damage card. The Hyena Bomber Squadron then makes room for others to move in. DBS 404 is activated and moves into bombing range of Pelta number 1. Hyena bombers fire on the Pelta, getting a hit and a crit. The Pelta spends its evade to reroll the crit, which gets rerolled into an accuracy. Pelta takes 1 damage on its rear, which is taken as a card. Next, the Flak Arfok prototypes are activated and move into range of the Pelta. The prototype Tri-Fighters fire into the rear of the Pelta, scoring 1 hit. The Pelta takes it as a damage card. Pelta number 1 activates, revealing a squadron command. It uses its engineering token to regenerate 1 shield on its rear. Squadron command is used to activate Ahsoka Tano, who moves over to engage the prototype droids. Ahsoka fires on DBS 404, getting a hit and an accuracy. She uses Adept 1 to reroll into a 2nd accuracy. The 2 accuracies stop the droid's defense tokens, and the bombers take 1 damage. Pelta 1 performs a Speed 2 turn to port, hoping to put enough distance between it and the pursuing droid fleet to survive the turn. The hard cell activates with a Concentrate Fire command. It chooses to keep it as a command. The hard cell fires its front guns at the rear of the Pelta, but its shot is obstructed. The hard cell rolls a single red die. Then Tuuk adds a 2nd red die, and the Concentrate Fire command is spent to add a 3rd red die. The result is a hit, crit, and accuracy. Accuracy is used to lock down the brace, and the ship takes a damage on its rear shields, and then another card which destroys the ship. The hard cell then moves forward at speed 2. The Munificent activates with a Navigate command, keeps it as a command, and then performs a hard turn to starboard, trying to get back within command range of the station. The remaining droid squadrons toggle their activation. Neither side is in command range of the station, and no points are scored. The Republic forces destroyed 3 Tri-Fighter squadrons, 2 Hyena Bomber squadrons, and gained 1 victory token for a total of 75 points. Confederate forces destroyed the Tranquility, Pelta No. 1, and the C-70 Charger with the Mercy mission, as well as Axe and Kickback, and gained 4 victory tokens for a total of 389 points.
So in the end, a pretty crushing defeat for the Republic and a great victory for the Separatists. Luminara's repair ships just weren't able to keep up with the damage output of Tuuk and his Hyena bombers. Thanks for watching this Armada battle report. Sorry for the little bit of sloppy play there at the end. We'll work on cleaning that up for the next battle report. And if you have any suggestions on how to make this content better, leave them in the comments below, because these videos are ultimately for you. Until next time, this is Evan for Epic Mini Wars, signing out.